In this video, I want to talk about my proprietary method of hypnotherapy, whole brain hypnotherapy, which is what we teach at my school, the Horizon Center School of Hypnotherapy. Let's dive in. And so, what exactly is whole brain hypnotherapy? Well, to understand what that is, we need to talk about what it isn't. Most hypnotherapy courses teach you to get a person super deep into hypnosis and then give them suggestions. The focus is really on the depth. You want to get them into the deepest state possible. That's what's going to make it work. The assumption is the deeper they are, the better the results. Now, I disagree with the approach of get them deep and give them suggestions for a number of reasons. First off, not everybody goes that deep. People go to their own natural range, whatever is organic for them. And if somebody is new to hypnosis, they're nervous, they're curious, they want to be in control, or they just don't have the natural tendency to go deep, they're going to hang out a little bit lighter. To try to push somebody to go deep when they don't want to or it's not natural for them will interfere with rapport, which is absolutely crucial to hypnosis. The client needs to feel safe. If the client doesn't feel safe, their subconscious won't let them go into hypnosis because its job is to keep the person safe. And taking somebody deep into hypnosis also creates a disconnect because when they're deep in hypnosis, the conscious mind kind of checks out. They're not really listening to me anymore. And we're limited when somebody's deep to using language because they can't hang in there long enough to do exercises inside their mind, to follow instructions, to visualize something. They don't participate as much when they're deep. Again, they're not really listening to me. They're just kind of floating around. So if I've got somebody deep in hypnosis and I'm using language because I can't do anything else with them, with the part of the mind that doesn't understand language, it's a bit of a disconnect. So you're putting them deep into hypnosis and then using an approach that actually doesn't work well on somebody who's deep. So it's very limiting with regards to the approaches that the hypnotherapist can use. I would rather have somebody hang out a little bit lighter and do techniques with them that are more meaningful because they speak to the subconscious than have them super deep and use techniques that the subconscious doesn't relate to. Now, it's also important to know that depth is not required for results. I sometimes compare it to being in a swimming pool. The water is not wetter in the deep end, it's just deeper. A person just has to be in hypnosis in order to be receptive. It's not as though if they're deeper, they're more receptive. And a deep client can still resist suggestions. So what matters more than depth is that the suggestions are acceptable and appropriate to the client. So I'm very careful to make sure that everything I'm saying to the client in hypnosis is something that they want to hear. We work cooperatively to figure out what I'm going to say. So if I had somebody really deep in hypnosis, I can't get away with, every time somebody says your name, you're going to bark like a dog, because their subconscious would hear me say that and it would be like, excuse me, what did you just say? And the person would probably come out of hypnosis. And so there's kind of a misconception that if they're deep enough, you can get them to do anything. Nope, not true. The subconscious can still reject suggestions even if the person's deep. All right, so if I'm not just getting them deep and giving them suggestions, what am I doing? Well, I allow the client to go to whatever depth of hypnosis is organic for them. I'm not pushing a client to go deeper than they're comfortable with. I let them stay at whatever range of hypnosis feels good for them. But I prove to them that they're in hypnosis before I move on to working on them the first time we meet. The reason for that is if a person is expecting hypnosis to look like what it does in stage hypnosis shows, I'm asleep, I'm not listening, I'm unconscious, I don't know what's going on, and it's not that way for them because they have a tendency to hang out a bit lighter, they might be thinking to themselves, this isn't working, I'm not hypnotized, this is bogus. Now, when you're in hypnosis, you're not just taking in whatever the hypnotist is saying to you, you're also responding to your own thoughts. Your subconscious doesn't differentiate between your internal voice and what you're being told. So if I've got you in hypnosis, but you think it's supposed to feel like you're deep or asleep and you're not, and you're thinking this isn't working, you can actually bring yourself out of hypnosis with those thoughts. You're programming yourself to not be in hypnosis. And so I want to show my clients that they're in hypnosis before I move on to do any work. So I do a little challenge that proves to them that even though they're listening, they're following along, they're actually taking in and responding to suggestions. Now, in the state where I just let them go to whatever is most natural for them, they're receptive to what I'm saying, but they're also able to listen and follow along, which is really important for some clients. One of the biggest fears, biggest misconceptions about hypnosis is that I can make you do whatever I want, right? I'm not going to have any control. The hypnotist is going to control my mind. Well, people do have control over what they take in and what they reject. But for some people, when they're new to hypnosis, if they have that fear, it can be very relieving and reassuring to know that you can listen so that if there was a suggestion you didn't like, you could cancel it or reject it. So in this state, they're receptive and they're also listening. And I take advantage of that fact and do techniques that appeal to both their conscious mind, the part of them that's listening, and their subconscious. And so I'm not just using techniques that are appropriate for the subconscious, I'm using a combination of techniques. The conscious mind is your logical mind. It understands reason and logic. The subconscious understands emotion and imagery and symbolism. So I'm using a combination of all of these things, working with your entire mind instead of just working with your subconscious. So there are lots of benefits of using the whole brain hypnotherapy approach. Let's first talk about the benefits for the therapist. The first is enhanced client engagement. Now, it's been proven that people who get better results are people who are more engaged, more involved in their therapy. If somebody is just going deep and checking out, they don't even remember what you said afterwards, they're not that engaged. And so a client who's engaged gets more meaningful results and does better in the therapy over time. It also is a way of maintaining and improving the rapport between myself and the client. Again, if I'm pushing the client to go deeper than they're comfortable with, they feel pressure, they feel uncomfortable, and that can affect our rapport. By allowing the client to go to whatever depth is most natural for them, we avoid that problem. Now, another benefit of this approach is that you have more techniques that you can use with the client. Again, if you've got a client deep in hypnosis, all you can do is give them suggestions, which is the least effective way to work with a client. And so whole brain hypnotherapy equips therapists with a variety of strategies that work with both the conscious and subconscious mind. And so you've got more flexibility in terms of what you can do with the client. Now, you can also work more effectively with a wider range of clients. I get a lot of clients who are analytical. Most of my clients fall on that end of the scale. An analytical client is going to be thinking and paying attention and listening. They're not going to go that deep. And so you want approaches for working with your more analytical clients. This approach works for them. It also improves your success rate by using methods that consider both the conscious mind's role and the subconscious mind's role. You have more likelihood of having the client accept what it is you're saying to them. There is no part of their mind that's going to be disagreeing. You've got both the conscious and subconscious on board. Now, this approach also encourages therapists to explore and address the emotional and creative aspects of the client's subconscious, leading to a deeper understanding of their needs and motivations. Now, when a client is following along and paying attention, they're not checked out during the session. They have more awareness of what happens during the session and more awareness of what's going on within them. If a client is basically feeling like they're sleeping throughout the session, they're not necessarily getting insights, getting clarity, getting new understanding into themselves. By hanging out a little lighter, the client is sort of overseeing what is happening in the session. My clients often have much more understanding of themselves, their behaviors, how their mind works, because again, they're observing everything that we're doing while we're doing it. And of course, there are a lot of benefits of using whole brain hypnotherapy for the client as well. One is it's a more personalized experience. Instead of one size fits all, get everybody deep, you're taking into consideration what is natural for your client. And that makes the client more comfortable. They feel heard, they feel understood, they feel not pressured. You're also involving the client in the therapy, so they have active participation. When the client is hanging out at whatever depth of hypnosis feels most comfortable for them, They can choose to accept or reject suggestions as they see fit. So, this can lead to greater insight, a stronger commitment to change, and feeling some sense of empowerment during the session that they have choice as to what they can take in or not. It's also a more holistic approach. We're addressing both the conscious and subconscious mind. Both parts of the mind are useful in helping us to achieve our goal. Why wouldn't we get both parts of the mind involved? So we're tackling the situation, the goal the client is coming for from all angles. We're using logic and reason to speak to the conscious mind, and we're using symbolism and imagery and stories and metaphors and all that sort of thing to speak to the subconscious. We're getting all 100% of their mind on board in achieving the goal. Techniques that engage the subconscious mind's affinity for emotion and imagery can also lead to deeper and more impactful healing and transformation. When the client is hanging out and observing what's taking place as opposed to being super deep, they're also able to observe how their subconscious responds to things. Now, for example, the subconscious communicates through imagery, through sensation, through emotion. So if let's say I talk about the client's mother in hypnosis and suddenly they feel rage or a tightness or heaviness in their stomach, that could be the subconscious going, hello, we've got something there. The subconscious is trying to get our attention. With a client who goes super deep, they may not be aware of these subtle changes in their physiology or their emotional state because they're not paying attention. And so we might miss important communication from the subconscious mind. And so these clients that I work with have much better understanding of their thoughts, their behaviors, their emotions. So there's more personal growth. There's more self-awareness that happens for them. They're also more likely to accept suggestions. We're using the client's natural thought processes to help them to take in or modify suggestions if they need to be modified. So again, we're putting the client in a more receptive state by giving them the ability to hear what's being said so they can decide if they want to take it in or not. And this gets more lasting results. Again, by getting both parts of the brain working on their goal, we're not leaving any, option for it not to be achieved. I get excellent results with my clients. Clients also feel really empowered by this approach. They like to take this active role. It boosts their confidence. It gives them an awareness of what to watch out for after the session. It gives them more insight into themselves, and it's easier for them to make the changes that need to be made. I hope this answers some questions about what exactly whole brain hypnotherapy is. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out. I am always happy to talk hypnosis. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.